This is ESPN Esports, and welcome to our League of Legends free agency roundtable. We're breaking down all the news and notes that have come out of the first almost 24 hours of free agency. I'm Arda Ocal alongside Emily Rand, Tyler Erzberger, and Jacob Wolf, who has left the Wolf Den. Finally, they have set you free.
I know, I could have walked out at any point, but I decided not to. So, sticking through the show.
First thing we'd like to say is sincerely from all of us, thank you so much for watching our live free agency show. It was a success on all fronts. We hope to do it again next year. If Tyler has his way, it'll be a 24-hour stream.
Oh, yeah. 24
hours. How many thousands of likes did you get on your tweets?
5,000 likes.
Yeah,
I feel
so people want that too.
I feel like we're definitely
25.
we
Our boss said 25.
We definitely need like an energy drink sponsor for me to survive that 25 hours or 24 hours because I'm going to have no breaks. So.
Okay, so let's pull the curtain a little bit. Now that you're here, let's just talk about it from your angle. All we saw of you on camera was you just delivering us news, but off camera, just take us through the frenetic pace and the frantic nature of it all.
Got really hot and heavy at the end. You know, I think that there was a lot of holdup on things like the Dignitas deal with Cloud9. Obviously, that couldn't be executed till after the 7 o'clock hour, so it's like it kind of just sat there for almost a little bit over an hour, and a lot of people in North America were a little bit hesitant to make any other deals until that one fell into place because it was the big one. So that being said, like as soon as we got into the last 30 minutes of the show, it was just chaos. But my phone was blowing up. Even in the first part of the show, I probably made about 15 to 20 phone calls in the first 30 minutes of the 45 minutes of the Open, but it got really hot and heavy at the end, which is why we saw the breaking of Kabe and Broxa. All those were kind of falling into place as the Vulcan deal to C9 got done, because there were big implications that didn't get done. Maybe the EG deal didn't get done. It was really up in the air, so it was waiting for all that to fall together, and that fell together really at the last minute. So.
Yeah, and we have a lot more news to talk about that has been broken since the free agency show. But within the confines of those 2 hours, let's start with you, Emily. The piece of news that shocked you the most, or that you were the most interested in?
I'm not going to say it shocked me the most, but I think the TL Broxa news is probably the largest piece of news that we came across, and it came like towards the end, and Jacob kept teasing the Xmithie thing, and he was like, it's not Xmithie, it's TL Broxa, and we're like, well, okay, now we know Xmithie is definitely leaving, so, and it's, I mean, we'd already talked about it as one of the destinations he was going to go, so I think that for me was part of the biggest piece of news. To recap what I said last night, I think it'll be interesting to see him off a team like Fnatic, where he's obviously splitting the attention of two very vocal not solo laners, but side laners. So I'm curious to see him on a different team.
I think Xmithie was sort of like everyone assumed he was leaving Liquid, so all the other pieces fell into place. You know, you had Broxa go to Liquid, you had Selfmade go to Fnatic. There was also some reporting this morning in Turkey, actually, that Trick was going to SK Game going to SK Gaming from Schalke. I believe that's probably legitimate. Mm-hmm. So I think that all of those pieces sort of hinged on Xmithie. I think a lot of people assumed his decision before it was actually made.
How about for you, Tyler?
Brox's obviously coming in hot at the end, Kabe as well, but my pick is Selfmade. I think Fnatic at the end of Worlds was, I don't want to say in dysfunction, but they were not happy. G2 when they lost, like they were sad obviously, but they were a team that you could see like these five are staying together. These guys are brothers, they're friends. Rekla said in the post-match interview after losing to FunPlus Phoenix, like they weren't very happy most of the year. Like they weren't have really happy times. And then, you know, Xmithie's the new coach. You bring in this legendary support who's now their coach trying to lead the team, and a team that has a lot of big personalities on it. You bring in Selfmade, who might be one of the most talented young prospects in the entire world, but is known for having a very fiery, I mean, he has a checkered past when it comes to, you know, being a bit toxic online, you know, L9 and all of that. But he has so much talent and so much drive that I think he has the makings of a superstar. And I think Fnatic, if everything comes together, if Xmithie can get all those personalities in line, they can compete with G2 and Origin for the top spot in Europe. Maybe not even just Europe. They can win Worlds next year with the lineup they have.
Wow. I mean, there were
If everything comes together. If everything comes together. If not, the team will be broke.
Rosters on paper don't always work out.
Yeah. But if it doesn't work out, this team could be dissolved by the end of March.
Speaking of rosters on paper, I actually have the live tracker at ESPN.com/esports. That's where you can get every single transaction on one page from the League of Legends free agency. Again, it's ESPN.com/esports. Origin has completed their lineup, and boy, does it look good on paper. On paper, it looks really good.
I'm actually super excited about the Origin lineup against my better judgment. I really like it.
So I want to get your thoughts on it. Alfari, Nukeduck remain, but they added Xerxes, Upset, and Destiny from Australia. Interesting import there. Yeah. Australia getting a big shine, right?
Yeah,
between Ryoma and exactly.
Really interesting because there was a Kotaku Australia story last night that they're downsizing League of Legends in Australia, and now you see two players just jump the pond, right? So you see Ryoma to 100 Thieves, and you see Destiny to Origin. I mean, take the equity while you had it and move on.
Okay, so yes, you make a very good point there, Emily. Teams on paper don't necessarily translate to real life, but when you see this Origin roster, how much of a potential is there for that to happen?
I love it. I absolutely love it. And again, I liked the Misfits roster last year, so that was an unfortunate roster on paper. I hope the same doesn't happen with this one. This is obviously a team that they constructed to be we need to find a way to beat G2. They had a really unfortunate summer. They went up against G2 in spring and lost twice in their playoff runs. So I think I think this is a lineup that they really did craft for that purpose of taking down G2 Esports, because obviously G2, what's going to stop them next year, right? Destiny is the big question mark for me, not because I think he's a bad player. He's actually been on top Oceanic teams for a while. Ever since the unfortunate mess that was Rich Gang, he's actually managed to work really hard and work his way up to some really good Oceanic teams. I think he is a top performer in his region. I think the question is now, when he goes up against stronger EU supports, what is that going to look like, and how well is he going to perform?
Well, the interesting thing on that, is that Mammoth competed at play-ins at Worlds a couple months ago, and I heard part of the reason that motivated this move is that he was scrimming against European sports, not just the World Qualifier teams, right, the three that qualified for Worlds, but also the additional ones, right, so Origin and Rogue and some of these others who were top teams in Europe but didn't make it to Worlds. And I heard that he performed pretty well in scrimmages, enough to impress people like Upset and others that got to see him play, and so I think that there was, even though it's a kind of little off-the-wall move, I think there's a little bit of sense to it that it showed that he could probably perform at a bigger level than what he was playing at in Oceania.
So Tyler, let's just assume for the sake of this question that Origin is the best suited player on paper to battle G2, or at least contend with G2 at that top position. When you look at those rosters and you see those matchups, does Origin have any advantages?
I think the Upset versus Perks matchup is going to be so spicy. I think we saw the limitations of Perks. Year one Perks in AD. I don't want to say Perks of AD doesn't have the peak to be the best AD carry in the world, but he was pinched in the final when his mages weren't working and they were out of style, and then his Xayah and Kai'Sa were taken away. He was shown to be, a rookie AD carry, and Upset is going to try to punish Perks in the bottom lane. It's gonna, and the thing is, Destiny is such a wild card. I feel bad for him. It's a great opportunity for him, right? This guy who's been in Oceania his entire career. But if OG starts out slow, there's only gonna be one scapegoat, and it's gonna be him.
Yeah.
He's gone if they don't make top four, right? They are going to be looking for a new support if they don't do well, and that's the downside of coming from
number pressure.
It's a lot of
pressure. How much
pressure.
time do you give him? Do you give him the year? Do you give him a split?
At least a split.
At least a split, right?
A split. If they make top four, I think you give them the year, because I think. But if they have a Misfits style implosion, then I say a split, because then you have there's supports there's so many good supports in the regional leagues that you can totally swap them out for a European prospect if they're not looking well.
Speaking of swapping out, another team that was at Worlds was Splice. and now their entire roster has imploded, whether it's Vizicachi retiring or players leaving the team. Humanoid is the only starter that remains on that roster. It'll look completely different next season as additions roll in. Yeah. But my goodness. It might even be a different name next season. It's like a complete change.
If you're picking a player to build a new roster around, though, Humanoid is not a bad option. Like, in my opinion, when people were talking about all of the new mid laners coming to the LEC last year, I actually thought Humanoid was the best performing rookie of those mids. I think he's an incredibly strong player that can only improve with experience. Mm-hmm. So I think in that regard, if they feel like they can raise talent around Humanoid, who already proved to have a really strong rookie year, I think that's not a bad player to build a new lineup around.
I think that they're in this position, and you see Misfits is kind of similar, where you have to make the financial decision of, do you want to be an Origin, go spend very high, recruit some of the best players domestically, and take the risk on someone like Destiny to compete with G2, which will cost you a bucket of money? Or do you want to wait out G2 and see if, in the sort of Golden State Warriors-esque type thing, see if G2 can fall apart one day and then there's an opening window? I think people like Misfits...
You're going to be waiting a while. I mean, all their contracts are up in 2021, so it's at least 2 seasons.
I know, but I think that people like Splice and Misfits are taking this route of like trying to bring in young rookies, right, to build around and to sign in long-term deals and hope that they improve and make some changes if they don't, and qualify for playoffs and wait out G2, which I don't know if that's a good strategy that works, but that's some of the feedback I got in talking to people around the league.
So we're going to talk about some of the other deals that broke after we went off the air on our free agency show. Like you said, Jacob, we were waiting for the Xmithie news. We thought that would be the one piece of news that would allow the rest of the dominoes to fall. But we got Broxa. We actually got Selfmade first, and then we got Broxa. So it's like the dominoes in reverse, like you've said, Jacob. But Xmithie did eventually, that news did break. You did tell us that he is going to Immortals. Which is not necessarily number one on people's dance cards or people's predictions in terms of where Xmithie would have gone. So what do we make of this move? Tyler, let's start with you. Xmithie to Immortals.
It's all about how they build around him, right? They have a great starting piece. They have one of the best native junglers along with Senskaran, so they can add imports. They obviously have to have some money. They are investing into this team. So it's really how they can shape this roster. And if you just plug them into the Optic lineup of last year, they're nothing really special. They make playoffs. They're probably a top 6 team, probably losing quarterfinals, maybe making an upset before getting 3-0'd by Liquid. But it's all about how you build around the team. If they can keep Crown, which is going to be very interesting, with Crown is a hot commodity, possibly with teams looking to maybe shift him over. But if they can get to Crown, maybe another good import, maybe just they need to build around Xmithie. Xmithie is never going to be that superstar player. He's never going to be that that Klid or that player that can really lead the charge and be that centerpiece. But if you put him around good players, he can make very good players into great players, and that's what we've seen throughout his career, going to Worlds on XDG. On Team Liquid, CLG, Immortals back in 2017 when they should have made quarterfinals and then they choked in the group stages and lost to Fnatic in 4th straight. Yeah.
Vivid memories.
Vivid memories,
for sure.
Vivid
Take you back to China, bud.
Take me back to China. But yeah, Xmithie can make very good players great, and I think if you put very good players around him, he can make them great. But if it's a lower standard, put him, some C players around him, he's not going to turn them into superstars.
Honestly, I think that there were a lot of teams, like half the league, were at least inquired on him. He got a renewal offer from Team Liquid. They were looking at doing some sort of double jungle system with him and Broxa sharing time at one point.
Wow.
I don't think that, though, that
How would that have worked?
Not well.
Really weird.
Not well. We saw it with Senskaran and Blabber, right? Senskaran, C9 tried it, but when you have 2 really good junglers who both think they should start in a league that doesn't have the greatest talent, they're going to want to leave. So the double jungle would have not worked.
And I don't think the renewal offer got as competitive monetarily as some of the others that came in. And really, I think it came down to two teams in the end for him, Team Solo Mid or Immortals. And I think sort of the prediction was that he would choose Team Solo Mid, he would go play with Bjergsen and Broken Blade, and then they would obviously get Kabe and Biofrost, and that would be one hell of a roster, right? That's a great North American roster. They decided against that. He decided against that, and he's going to Immortals instead. Immortals has a lot of fluidity right now. You know, they have Crown and Arrow under contract, but a lot of teams have inquired about getting Crown for trade, as Tyler alluded to. And then Arrow, you know, they could either keep him or they could move him. He's had some really good moments in his tenure in the LCS from Phoenix One and from Optic. And, you know, they have no support. Support is open for them because Gate and Big both expired. They have no top laner because Dokla and Aurum have both expired as well. And so they can either play around and move Crown and sign a North American mid laner. There are some options out there like Demonte and others, right, that are in the market, and then go import top and then domestic support. They can do the inverse. They can go domestic top and pull from somewhere else, and then do import support with Arrow in the bot lane. They have a lot of flexibility, and I think that they're going to play the weight game, and they're going to see what they can do in the next couple of days.
Well, we definitely know what's happening with C9 at AD carry, Emily. We know that Sven is going to C9, and Sneaky will not be returning to C9. We don't know whether Sneaky will retire, become a streamer, or join another team. Let's start with Sven going to C9. That roster is going to look a lot different in 2020.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting challenge for Sven, actually, because if you think about his career, when he's been AD carry back when he was on Origin and then G2, and then also TSM, like he was always paired with a support that was either really experienced veteran player who helped bring him up in Xmithie, or someone who was already an established veteran support in NA and had, you know, a strong voice like Xmithie. This is the first time where he's been partnered with a support like Vulcan, who is coming off his rookie year, and Vulcan is someone who I think is incredibly talented, but doesn't have that like established experience, veteran presence. So this is Sven's chance to be that veteran, right? To like direct his lane, to dictate how he wants the lane to go. And I'm really curious to see how they play together, because it's a different experience for Sven as an AD carry than from what I've seen of him throughout his career.
And what do you think about Sneaky's next move?
I mean, I think like if Sneaky didn't want to compete, he would have already retired, because he could make, in my opinion, a lot more money than streaming and doing cosplay or doing whatever he wants than competing. So that tells me that he still wants to compete, which I think is, I mean, admirable. Like, I respect him for it. He could easily not and probably make more money doing so. I do wonder what kind of team will pick him up, because I do think this was the first year that we really saw, like in previous years, people would, you know, pick on his laning, pick on his mechanics, but he always showed up in team fights. He always showed up when it mattered on the international stage. And this was the first year that that really crumbled towards the end. I don't appreciate how people are rewriting his history suddenly and being like, he always sucked, because that is not true. But I do think that this year we saw a drop in his performance. So it's kind of a down year for him to be looking at going on another team. I hope he finds a good home if he really does want to continue to compete. Because again, I think that's admirable. I think he has a lot of veteran experience. I think he brings a very like chill vibe to a team that a lot of teams need, especially if you have a lot of like nervous, uptight players. Having a player like that is really valuable. So we'll see. I hope he can, if he does want to compete, truly want to compete, I hope he can find that competitive edge again and kind of get back up to where he used to be.
You know, interesting thing about him is he is one of 3 people in the LCS that has eligible for equity next time he has contract negotiations. So obviously Bjergsen already got that. He is part owner of TSM now. Stixay and Sneaky are the other 2 that have that eligibility in terms of being consistent enough on one team. So if I'm him, I wait. I take the year. I'm pretty sure he's got 1 year left on his deal. I take the year to sort of stream and make money off cosplay and be a streamer for C9, stick around on the C9 sort of ecosystem. Because I think if he wanted to, he could be an influencer for them and rep their brand and do marketing and whatever else, model, whatever the hell he wants to do. and then when his contract's up, he could always negotiate to stay and get that equity, or he could look to move again next year, where the market for AD carries I think will be a little bit wider next year. This year it was all about junglers and supports, and I think next year we're going to see a little bit more AD carry movement, which is the way contracts shake. So honestly, if I were him, I would stick with C9 for the year and try the influencer life and see if he likes it.
Can he find an equity deal somewhere in the LCS?
It's so interesting. My hope. Here's my hope for Sneaky. Here's my dream team, Arda. Here's the dream team. We got Xmithie on Immortals.
Okay.
We got Sneaky in the bottom lane. Aframu in support.
Boy.
Let's bring the the NA dream team, the old NA guard is all coming together. Let's get Pole Belcher mid, Darshan top, like the super team.
That team is actually possible.
Yeah.
That is possible, yeah.
Darshan, Xmithie, Pole Belcher, Sneaky, Aframu. Just think of the views. Just think of that team would be very popular.
I feel like if you're like Dignitas, that's the team you look to assemble. I don't think that will. Obviously, they renewed Huni. And they're going to be making some more changes, I believe. But I think if you're a team that's looking to sort of change your brand, I think Immortals is pretty happy with their brand. But if you're looking to change your brand and make it popular, then you go out and you try to get someone like Sneaky or someone else in that sort of lane or category. I know they have Cody Sun, but Aframo is somewhere that landing on a dig could be interesting because he would instantly boost their popularity even if he's not the best performing support in the league.
How happy are you, Tyler and Emily, that you don't have to worry about a wolf howl when you're talking about your points right now?
I mean, a close, good friend who is definitely not the coach of 100 Thieves Academy advised me that I should learn how to speak in shorter sentences or not complete sentences, which, I'll work on it.
It's just funny how it's always in the back of your head, right? It's like, okay, the wolf howl might come at any time during the live show.
Yeah.
I felt so bad interrupting sometimes, but I was not.
No, that's part. That was what the crux
Apparently,
of
my
the
face
show
was hilarious.
I mean,
so.
the producers who were in the other control room behind us, they were the ones that were controlling when it sounded. I just told them I had something.
We did need a sound for a Fion bomb too.
Yeah,
because he did drop one. So
11-1. It was 11-1. It was
was that the final score?
11-1 on the show. It was a close race. It was close.
Very close.
It was very close.
It was like a team's leading 8-0 in the third period, and finally they scored.
No,
So we got on the board.
It was
no shutout for you.
It was 2-0. We had a lull. I broke my news. I was like, I'm the man. 2-1. And then 8 seconds later, we're talking about effort, and then.
The reason I bring it up is because the news you broke was from the LCK. Of course, the T1 news there that you broke. More LCK news actually dropped. We have Fly joining Afrika Freaks. Why don't you break that one down for us?
Fly is one of the most interesting players that's ever played League of Legends. I think he's going to get a lot of comparisons like a Doinby or a supportive type mid laner who's never going to be the star. And on a team like Afrika Freaks with Keen, who I believe they gave a very big contract to, which kind of shifted the market in the LCK along with Huni. Keen and Huni have kind of made the LCK the Wild West. I've talked to a few people, and right now, pretty much everything in Korea is on fire, except Griffin and Damwon. Those two teams seem to have.
Ironically, the one that's being investigated by the government is not
on fire. You have to buy the team.
Yeah.
Although PDD did say he was having dinner with the Griffin CEO, just to throw that out there.
So essentially, looking at Korea and Afrika Freaks, there's a lot of rosters. SKT has a lot of openings. Afrika has some openings. Fly is a very supportive mid laner. You can put up.
Isn't it going to be weird seeing T1 without Coma at head coach?
It's not confirmed yet. I think that's the one big thing.
It's not confirmed.
So,
they haven't left. They just entered the agency.
Okay.
They're still in negotiation. Okay. Klid and Connor are gone, I believe, but Coma I still think can come back.
Okay.
I think it's like Coma and Faker. It's
so weird to even envision that team without those two.
It's Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. It's Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan. You can't see these two on different teams. We need, it's watching a father and son break up, right? It's so sad. Klid and Con can go wherever. They're going to make a lot of money because of Huni. Congratulations, Huni. Huni.
Thank you for setting the market in 2019.
Way to go, Huni.
Dignitas blew.
The entire LCK just stood up, round of applause.
No, he negotiated by himself. He didn't even have an agent. Huni didn't have an agent. He had a lawyer. And he got that himself? Yeah, $2.3 million
What?
Huni.
No agent? Wow.
Grab the bag, Huni.
Holy cow.
So our LCK update is essentially right now, people have inquired on Griffin, and Griffin has said, no, go away. And then they went to Damwon, because, Damwon, Naguri, Canyon. Showmaker, we'd love to have these guys. You know, you're a small org, we can buy them from you. And Damon's like, no, we look at our buyouts, you're not going to beat these. And so pretty much every team right now is scrambling in the LCK because Huni basically blew up the market. So Torched it. All those players who think they're better than
those who love chaos, this is wonderful for them.
So basically what happened is all those players, the Klids, the Khans, who are, the thing with Khan is that he's 26. So he's 2 years away from having to do his mandatory Korean military service.
Grab the bag, bud.
That's essentially what I've been told, is that he wants to grab the bag, he wants to compete, he wants to go to Worlds, but he wants to grab that bag before he turns 28. So LCK right now is in disarray, all because of Lord Huni. He somehow created chaos, even though he's in NA.
What do you think, Emily?
I mean, I think that LCK teams, it's been really interesting who has been signed. So we had Deft re-signing with Kingzone, which was actually huge. I expected Deft to leave. I know he was being courted by several LCK and even a few LPL teams. So I was
some Western teams with some interest, by the way, waiting to be able to talk to him.
Oh, I was really surprised that he decided to stay with Kingzone after the entire team left. Similarly with Keen staying with Afrika and Fly signing, that's kind of a weird pickup. As Tyler alluded to, Fly is mid lane style. Like before, people were talking about someone like Doinby or someone like Huhi. Fly was kind of the first mid laner to have that style where he played champions, where he just kind of shoves the wave and then roams to side lanes. So it's a very weird, it's a weird balance because it gives you a lack of mid pressure and you need to supplement that with something else. So that will be wholly dependent on what they can do with the rest of their roster to try to transfer some of that pressure, obviously to Keen in the top, but then to the rest of the lineups, we have no idea who it's going to be. So what we're seeing in LCK, and I know people hate this comparison, but what we're seeing in LCK is kind of like a concentration of big superstar, like star players, but only one like per roster. And it kind of reminds me of some things that happen in the LPL when you have like one or two really good players and then the rest of the roster is kind of filled in with whoever they can find. And it seems like even some of the bottom team LPL teams, you will find a lot of the times it's young Chinese talent actually that is really, really good, and you're just like, find this person a better team. Like, get them off this team, promote them to one of the bigger teams so that they can actually like flourish on a better lineup. So I'm really curious to see how Korea is going to fill in the gaps, because I think this has been a problem for them that we've seen exacerbated over the years as people, other regions have continued to drain out and siphon out South Korean talent. When they've had to fight other regions for their own talent, they can't necessarily always compete with those contracts. And like we said, like Huni's contract is driving up the market. So now a lot of these players are like, well, let me see how much I can get. I'm going to hang out and be a free agent and see what offers I get. And who knows, maybe that means that they just end up returning to SKT. Like, I don't know. But it kind of surprises me because I'm pretty sure that SKT is one of the organizations that can pay more than a lot of other orgs in Korea. But I think that it's really interesting to see how Korean teams are going to fill in and how they continue to struggle to compete sometimes with other organizations for their own like native talent. Outside of obviously Griffin and Damwon, who are identified like concentrated cores of strong, young South Korean talent that can only improve.
One tidbit on that, and I think the reason why you don't see T1 or some of these teams that are going to drop the bag like Dignitas, who've been kind of like controlled the entire offseason. They like the Huni deal, and then the Vulcan deal
held everything up last year.
So basically Dignitas has controlled the entire offseason. Congratulations, Dignitas. Congratulations, Huni, for acquiring the bag. But the reason why I don't think we're going to see T1 and some of these teams drop the bag because they have trainees who are really, really, really good that are like ready to play in LCK next season if need be. Like they have trainees, like KT has a few trainees who are in the top 25 of solo queue in Korea, like Dean, and who's a mid laner who's ready to go into the team next season if possible. And so, SKT has Leo and a few other players that, in a world where they need to, play young talent, they can and will, and they could be that next Naguri or Showmaker. So that's the reason why South Korea isn't dropping the bag so much and letting these players kind of, linger and go off to, greener money pastures is because they have, the trainees ready to step in, unlike NA where we have no talent, so we have to import everyone.
Or you could take a chance on your own talent
We could,
and actually
but
develop it.
Or we can give
People.
Fumi $2 million.
Or we can have a trainee go international.
Nah, the salaries we're seeing $1 million salaries
No,
from here
the
on
future
out. That's
is
what's happening.
Australia. The future is Australia.
Yeah, there it is. The future is Australia.
Import
Hey, two
all-
in the league. Those two players, Ryoma and
Destiny.
Destiny, they do well this season. Australia's getting
Australia.
raided.
Australia.
Australia is getting raided.
The Australian Exodus.
Okay, let's stick with Asia. LPL, Emily, you are very, very well versed in the LPL. Imp retiring, your thoughts?
I mean, I'm kind of sad, I'm kind of sad as a someone who watched him when he was on Samsung Ozone and Samsung White, and he has like a very quirky personality. There were some weird things that came out with him when he was like rolling around the grass at Worlds. There were some other weird things with him, like at an internet cafe with a giant purse that looked like a dog after he was on LGD. I think he was kind of one of these older players that we've seen a lot of them retire this year. Score has to go do his military service, so he's retiring. Prey retired and then unretired, and then we're assuming he's going to retire again. Flame, I believe, is retiring because he has to go into military service, yes?
I don't know. He hasn't announced anything. He got Challenger.
Piglet is currently a free agent, but if he does not find a team, there's a chance he has to
so
do his
we're
military
seeing
service as well.
the reason why Imp's retirement struck me. We also saw some big retirements in China with Zatai previously, then Let Me, then MLXG mid-year. I think we're really seeing that transition from the old, like the actual old guard, like all of the old champions players that we used to love. They're finally like almost entirely gone, and like I said, Damwon and Griffin for South Korea anyway, because Imp is a South Korean player. He went to LGD after Samsung White won Worlds. They're retiring. They're done. Their era is over. Mm-hmm. So in a way, that's kind of sad for me, because even though Imp hasn't had a really strong season in a while, I know a lot of people will say that his spring on JDG at the very end, when they were actually in the finals mm-hmm. against IG and then got absolutely destroyed, sending IG to MSI. I think his performance was okay. That's probably like the best that we'd seen from him in a while. And he had like kind of an unfortunate descent in China, like he won LPL. LPL did terrible in 2015 at Worlds, including his team that didn't even make out of groups, even though they were favored to take the title. And it's just been kind of a slow decline from there. So, I mean, I'm sad to see him go. Mm-hmm. I definitely don't think he was at the top of his game, but it's just kind of like one of those wistful nostalgia things.
We got one more news item to talk about that broke after our free agency show. And again, the live tracker is at espn.com/esports. You will see every single transaction from League of Legends free agency there, all in one place. Very convenient. Schalke,
the big one.
the former H2K Gaming AD carry, Forgiven, has signed with Schalke, and Odoamne has extended his contract. But Forgiven,
he's
moving
back.
over to Schalke. He is back. I remember talking about Forgiven at Worlds at Madison Square Garden, the first event I did with ESPN Esports.
He's back.
Where it was H2K in the semifinals there, and now we find him back with Schalke. Tyler, let's start with you on this one.
God Given is back. They lost Kabe, they lose Broxa, but God Given coming back from the Greek army, coming back to reclaim his throne, the cocky, wisecracking, the arrogant prince himself, the king. He's come back, and I am so excited for Forgiven to be back. League of Legends is better Forgiven. Like we have these players in traditional sports that are cocky and they bring in viewers because they're so talented, but they also have a personality.
Just look at the UFC. There's plenty of them there.
Yeah,
Yes.
we have that with with God Given, Forgiven. It's League of Legends is a better place with Forgiven in it, and I cannot wait to see like him versus Upset, him versus Reckless. Like these rivalries are so good next year.
So Jacob, it's nice that he's got the personality and he's magnetic, and people will want to watch him play. But what about his level of competition after coming back from the Greek army? Do you think he will be up to snuff?
I mean, mechanically, he's an incredibly impressive player. He played Overwatch and Heroes of the Storm. It's kind of on the side while like he had a little bit of a break in between League of Legends. He became a top player in both games respectively in his region. So like this guy's mechanically gifted at video games clearly. And I think that competition has changed a lot in his role. There are a lot of new faces that were young, that weren't either even old enough to play in the league when he was a big part of it. People like Upset and some of these others who are now here and now are big parts of the league. So I don't really know how he's going to compare to some of the new people he didn't play against nearly as frequently back then. But if he has any sort of chance to play the way he used to play, and if he gets paired up with a good support, which we don't know who the support of Schalke is going to be quite yet, they need to find jungle and support. That's
Unless you tell us right now, since you have the inside track.
I mean, I have some ideas of who they could get. I would look at someone like Dreams from SK Gaming, who could be like an interesting addition. I think there were rumors that they were going after Joko for jungle, but I don't think that's actually. I don't know if that will happen or not either way at this point. But what they do have is they have Ottawamne, who they've extended. They have Abadage, who's still under contract, and they have Forgiven, right? And so you look at that, and there's potential there, right? I think that if Forgiven's as good as Upset, that could be a potential upgrade. You're sticking with your top and mid laner, and then maybe you can do a little bit better for support and jungle. And I think that this roster could be competitive. But if he is a 9/10 of the player that he used to be, he will be incredibly competitive in Europe. And I think that it will be a really fun roster to watch come 2020.
You touched on one thing that I want to bring up. You said that a lot has changed in his position, but you brought up his competition. What I'd like to bring up is that a lot has changed in his position, just the position itself.
Yeah.
Like, our expectations of AD carries are a lot different than when he used to play. So actually, that's something that I'm really curious about. Because I agree that he is like insanely mechanically talented. But his style was always like Lane Kingdom, right? Yeah. Like that was his thing. Like he came up with that. He was the one who was like, I'm just going to crush you in lane. I'm going to focus on the like 1v1 AD carry matchup or the 2v2 like bot lane matchup and just crush you that way. And I'm not sure if he can necessarily play that way every game anymore. Like we'll see. Like we'll see if he does decide, yes, I'm going to stick to my like tried and true play style. How well is that going to work when the bot lane has become an incredibly fluid position?
He definitely was always sort of the 1v9 player in terms of carrying games on things like Caitlyn and Lucian and others, right? These like very high lane bullies where you could stick them with a Braum or whatever it may be and just bully your lane, Braum, Thresh, Morgana. I think that now you have things, people play mages in bot lane, Swain, they have Yasuo, they have things that are way more team reliant and team fight oriented. You don't just smash lane with them. Let's see how the meta changes this offseason in terms of the actual game changing going into next split. I mean, things like Senna as well entering. Maybe there'll be something that people can use competitively. It's got some good engage early, but I don't know. I think that's a fair point, Emily. I think that looking at this, the role has changed and the competition has changed. He's coming into something that is not what it was like when he left.
Last point, Tyler?
He's still the best AD carry by far.
What a better note to end on. Doing it for the memes. A couple of asks for you out there. If you can please subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ESPN Esports, as well as our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/ESPN Esports. In both cases, please turn on notifications so you will be notified. You will be the first to know whenever we go live on Twitch or videos like these drop on YouTube. And let us know in the comments below who your winners and losers are so far in League of Legends free agency. One more time, thank you very much for watching our live show. Thank you very much for watching this video. And of course, continued coverage available at ESPN.com/esports.
Shout out to Hooney.